And now we're going to go back into the world of modern religion. So, here we go. Modern religions for postmodern prophets. Social justice, global warming, censorship, institutions, celebrity, moral panic, and outrage culture. Everyone needs something to lean on, even the devoutly secular. But ideology and reality run on separate, interweaving tracks. Mind the gap. So this is my framing for belief systems that place faith over reason. They may have components of both, but even the devoutly secular, you don't have to believe in a traditional religion, but you can if you also believe in a modern religion. Well, I'm agnostic on many of them, so my bias is clear, and I'm not making any judgment. But this is how I frame it. And I'd also include here Modern Religion Glossary number 1. You have a pope, a supreme authority, possibly the genesis of that ideology. You have a prophet in the modern religion, a lower authority of the ideology, tasked with proselytizing. You have a disciple of the modern religion, a believer, and often preacher, that this is not only an ideology, but the truth. And a martyr, a non-believer. So in many ways, if you do not believe in the modern religion and you are also cast as a target in determining moral virtue, if your removal from a situation prompts moral virtue, you could be considered a martyr. But we'll go through here and talk a little bit about the concept. I do have a number of videos out there. Moral panic is a modern religion. Social justice is a modern religion. Global warming is a modern religion. Censorship is a modern religion. And a few others that dabble into the same topic, as well as a selection of modern religions that talks about it in an overview sense. But we'll talk more about it here. Because people will ask me, well, it doesn't fit, when you say modern religion, Jeff, it doesn't fit the qualities, the requirements for religion. If I go into the dictionary and I find in the dictionary it says, this is what a religion is, this is what it entails. Well, that's why this is called postmodernism. This is a framing of reality through my personal filter and focusing on, again, selectively certain ideologies and belief systems that I find to be, in the absence of God, we create God. We create axioms. And some of these axioms are covered, and I call them MRs, or modern religions. So, for example, social justice, these are all systems of real-world moralism. They don't necessarily have a deity up in the sky, like Allah or God or Buddha. They have a specific goal in mind. With social justice, you have equality and equity. And people put a lot of faith into this system, this postmodern collectivist system of social justice, where you cast an oppressor and an oppressed, a bully and a victim. And you say, well, every interaction you have, and then you have intersectionality where it turns into fractals. You can go through all these different angles on how one person is the oppressor or the oppressed. And so ultimately, people do gain moral virtue and universal truth and order, purpose, and control over their lives through their belief and faith in a modern religion. So, yes, it isn't a religion. It's a modern religion. And with social justice, you have this goal. You say, well, we want people to be equal. We want equal outcomes. And, well, unfortunately, that's not the way that meritocracy and capitalism and physics work in our world. It's just not the way it works. We have to take a ground-up philosophy in many cases. And yeah, we can do little things to make capitalism and meritocracy more fair. Maybe people have been mistreated for largely irrational reasons or biased reasons that we can't map out easily without mind reading and projection. But, we have to address hundreds of millions of people and do it in hundreds of countries. And with a modern religion, we have people out there that will stake their entire reputation. The disciples, they'll stake their entire reputation on their belief system. They will cast people into the groups that they wish to put them into arbitrarily, subjectively, contextually, but ultimately the context becomes everything. They just say, well, you are the groups you're a part of. You are the associations you have. And I find that destructive. So that's why I'm agnostic. I find it immoral, meaning I think there's probably a little more harm than something moral, which would be, we believe people that say they're moral say do no harm. I believe there's harm to be had when you're redirecting your hate in terms of social justice and funneling it towards those you believe have this thing called privilege. And its inverse, known as victim points. People gather victim points based on their immutable characteristics that they can't change. It doesn't seem very meritocratic to me. So I do critique it often. But again, if you are a disciple of the modern religion of social justice, you are welcome here. And I see your good intentions. I'm not going to tell you where they go. That would be a belief. And I am agnostic. But those good intentions go somewhere. And you have to be cognizant that you're not going down that particular road. It's not the only road you can go down, but it is certainly a possible outcome. And it's not equal to the other one. So, that's social justice. You have global warming, fear of climate doom. We have heard enough about that. Check out my video, Modern Religion, Global Warming. Global warming is a modern religion, and I talk more about my feelings on that. Censorship, silencing people will save us all, Jesus! Silence us! Close our voices down, deplatform, deperson. Off with the infidels! Get them out! Jack, Mark Zuckerberg, get rid of all the people I don't like, whose opinions I don't care about and don't want to hear! That's what I see when I see, I'm a little more judgy about the modern religion of censorship. That's what I see. And largely it's not even that. It's not the outrage. It's literally just corporations saying, we don't like the free market. We don't like competition. We don't want to have to deal with this. Hey, Google, can you, get rid of the infidel? Can you culturally engineer, algorithmically engineer them away? And then say it's the advertisers that wanted it. They wanted it. We're doing it for the advertisers. You algorithmically manipulate the results, change the truth. We are in a post-truth world in many ways, as I described earlier in the video. So that's censorship. I don't have a high opinion of it. Institutions, of course, state, media, and academia, mapping out what reality is, what's moral, what's good. And if you trust the government implicitly, you are a disciple of the modern religion of institutions as it pertains to state. But state, media, academia, they all work together. And I talk about that in my tweet and video, Sophistry School. Check it out on BitChute and YouTube, of course. But we talk about how you have to follow the money, follow the influence, follow the power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Follow it around. You might be surprised at what you find. Celebrity is a modern religion. Of course it is, because we have people like Trump and Oprah and Obama. And even my good, we're not friends yet, hopefully someday. I am a big Scott Adams fan, and when he has the simultaneous sip, which I love, by the way, Scott, I'm a big fan of yours, it is a ritual. And we have all of our rituals, we have all of our our code in these different, some people might say it's a cult. If they have the modern religion of moral panic as their guiding light, they'll say it's a cult. And I say there's a difference between cult and culture. It's a culture. It's a mind country. See, I'm framing it. I'm reframing it for you. But they call it a cult when somebody, especially a cult of personality, PewDiePie, it's a cult of personality. And then Ninja on Twitch and all these different people, they go, oh, you're influencing, you're too persuasive, you're too fun, people are starting to talk like you and act like you. And yeah, you know why? Because we're human beings. We see ourselves in others, they see themselves in us, and it's a constant go-between. It's a communication we have with each other. So, yeah, celebrity is a modern religion. You can put a little bit too much faith in somebody that has credentials. Again, like the institutional world. I put institutions and celebrity next to each other in the tweet here. You have people that are credentialed, that they're experts. They have it under their title on the TV. It says expert in this topic. So you put aside reason. You say, well, I don't know this topic. So they're an expert. Trust the experts. I'm not saying don't trust the experts, but I'm saying you can't trust them implicitly. You can't trust them without any kind of critical thought all the time. Otherwise, well, you get into some trouble. Intellectually, you reach dead ends where you say, well, I'm resting with this guy here, and while I don't have the knowledge to confirm the veracity of what they're saying, they are experts. So, hey, why don't I just put faith before reason? Can't reason it out anymore. Contradictions don't exist, by the way. Something I talk about in my new tweet, Child World. Contradictions don't really exist. It's just missing information. And it's tough sometimes to get that missing information. Sometimes we're just not qualified, in a way, to get it. We can become qualified. So I don't say to people, we talk about censorship as a modern religion. We have the phases of censorship. The first phase is self-censorship. They say, hey, you're not qualified to speak. Don't speak. And so you can choose, because we always have a choice in everything, not to speak. They'll say you're not qualified to speak, so maybe you shouldn't spread mis or disinformation. And that's just a mechanism, a tool of, they might frame it as real-world moralism, but oftentimes there are sort of malevolent purposes there. So, you can't mind read each person as to why they want to censor you. But sometimes it's just to shut you up, to make sure your voice isn't heard in the dialogue. And I try to get people away from that. I try to make sure that you don't have to be a super expert to be involved in the process, because we all have so much information that we've learned through osmosis, and we all have a say. We're all human beings. We all have to face some of the costs and the consequences of these things that are being done, regardless of the benefits. We all have some stake, some skin in the game. So I don't want to have people get excluded. And of course, with the phases of censorship, just to finish up, there's a video out there, The Phases of Censorship and Other Stories. Check it out on my channel. The second phase, of course, is passive censorship. They tell everybody else, hey, don't listen to this man or woman or whatever your gender may be. They don't listen to them. They're discredited. They might smear you. They might say libelous, slanderous things. They might do all kinds of things to get, not to tell you to stop talking, but to get other people to stop listening to you. And then, of course, the final phase, active censorship, silencing. God, the axiom of the modern religion of censorship is silence. So that means, you don't get to speak. The scientific process ends. Science discontinues. You're no longer trying to find a greater, higher truth that lies between you and somebody else. You just have silence over here and one person spouting on this side everything that they think and believe. So I try to stay away from that. Moral panic and outrage culture, of course. People are scared of new things. New, unexplored, uncertain, unpredictable environments. They are afraid. and they want to bring order to the chaos. This is a altruistic thing to do. So they come in with moral panic and they say, well, rock and roll music seems kind of scary. Heavy metal, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, this seems kind of scary. And then they look at people, cult of personality, moral panic, PewDiePie, or Soph. Check her out on BitChute. I'm not sure if she's on YouTube anymore after YouTube is turning itself into a highly curated publishing platform, not a platform for publishing your content as a creator, but they are a publisher, and they say, well, here, what does Disney want? What does Fox want? What does NBC, CBS, ABC, all these different, ABC's part of Disney. What does Google want? What do the corporations want? People get mad about, this is a little bit tangential, people get mad about meritocracy. And the problems they have are, lobbyists and cronyism and nepotism. And I'm like, yeah. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. When you have all the power to control who gets to say what, who gets to go where, yeah, you're going to give it to those that you have a preference for. They might be your friends, your family. Maybe there's a lot of money involved. Money, follow the money when it comes to these institutions. So, moral panic, drugs, we should end the drug war. End the drug war, decriminalize, stop making addicts into criminals. They are sick. They are not, if they've committed a violent crime, sure, view them with that lens. But again, they are sick people. They are hurting. They don't need to be thrown into prison. They need to go into rehab, But we have moral panic. Every time something new happens, people are afraid of the unknown. And we're all part of this. I am a victim too. I've been outraged before. I have looked at things and said, no. And then years later, I come back to it and I go, well, I'm used to it now. What was I so scared of in the first place? So it can happen. I like to keep an optimistic frame, an optimistic view versus pessimism on these things and try to let them play out a little bit before I, get outraged. Because folks, outrage culture is a modern religion, and it's outrage all the way down. I'm outraged over your outrage. You're outraged over my being outraged over your outrage. And I'm outraged. You're outraged. It's just, the idea is to keep a cool head and be agnostic or even atheistic to this modern religion and just point out, I'm not trying to police behavior here, but some people literally just are going from outrage to outrage to outrage to outrage to outrage. It's like it is the dopamine drip of their day on social media and elsewhere. No judgment here, but I do try to say, maybe take a step back before allowing yourself to give in to every trigger, because it is a minefield out there, folks. It truly is. Everyone needs something to lean on, even the devoutly secular. But ideology and reality run on separate, interweaving tracks. Mind the gap. So you have ideology over here, you have a belief system, may it be a religion or a modern religion, and then you have reality. You have what's really happening in the outside, observable universe. You have everything, the actual movements of things happening, and then you have the ideal over here. You have a moral core, a code, if you will, ethics, and a system of moral virtue and truth, how to get there, how to reward, how to bring order and purpose and control people so that they're culturally engineered to do the right thing in reality. But again, reality is chaotic. Reality has so many factors that are seen and unseen. And sometimes there is a bit of interweaving. You have ideologies that fit well over reality and make certain things that happen make more sense. They can make things make more sense. That's why we do persuasion. That's why we do postmodernism and framing, to help things make more sense. Sometimes there's a little bit of hyperbole mixed in, or post-truth, or maybe a little exaggeration again, hyperbole. There might be something that's slightly fudged a little bit and it needs a little bit more nuance to be whole, but ultimately that's what it's kind of about, having a frame that makes sense, that more people can understand and get used to viewing values this way, putting values on things and viewing them in a productive manner. It's about having a productive, constructive frame and not one that's just destructive and self-defeating. But they run on separate interweaving tracks, and we should mind the gap between them. Make sure we understand how much of this is our confirmation bias and maybe even cognitive dissonance, and how much is actually happening. So that's why I talk about with persuasion, you can get sometimes when you look at large-scale human interactions, you can get a more predictive frame on things over time, a more predictive filter, so you kind of know what to expect, and you can use casual fatalism and determine what's movable, what's immovable, what's belief, what's real, what are facts, what is fiction, so on and so forth. So I'd like to frame things this way. Not to say, you should never tell someone that their religion or modern religion doesn't exist or isn't real, or if it's just a belief system, because that would be rude. And you don't want to be rude to people. So the glossary, you have your popes, your super large voices that kind of guide the direction and maybe even could be the genesis of a modern religion, such as global warming. The people that put out those models and those figures and estimates that may or not be true over 30 or 40 years. They may be just, highly flawed, maybe even manipulated. But, they're the ones that are the progenitor of that thought, of that modern religion. May it be, I don't call global cooling a modern religion, I just call global warming one. But they're all within that same purview of climate change and climate as a sort of moral system. We have to protect the planet at all costs. Put human considerations, put economics aside, faith over reason, and say, we have to do all these things. It's Kairos effect. We have to take action now. It's a religious fervor. Yes, you might go to Wikipedia and not find modern religion, but there are truths to this. We have apostates. We have all these different features. I talked with my friend Kyle on Twitter about this a few weeks ago about modern religion, and the fact is you do have rituals and you do have your popes, prophets, disciples, and martyrs. There are so many parallels to traditional religion that I find modern religion to be a productive frame. A prophet, of course, is a lower authority, not the supreme authority of a pope, but a lower authority of the ideology tasked with proselytizing. So if you see a blue check on Twitter talking about one of these modern religions, they're a prophet because they have a little bit more credential. They can give their blessings and take them from everybody else. A disciple, which is a believer and often a preacher, that this is not only an ideology, but the truth. So people that, they don't see it as a belief system or ideas, they see it as, this is how it is. Now, if I go to a Christian or a Muslim or a Hindu and I say, well, you believe in God. I don't believe in God. You believe in God, and you go up to them and you ask them questions, and you get the sense that they do truly, ultimately believe in the divine. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And you might not believe. You might want to believe, but you may or may not believe. Maybe you do believe, whatever it might be. But they see it as the truth. They see it as the truth. And it's not just ideology. It's not just I go to church, I go to mosque, I might be Jewish, I go to temple. It's not just that. It's more than that. It's a full-on life belief, a lifelong belief. It's very important, very intrinsic to their core identity, their connection with God. So I totally respect that. And what I'm seeing is then that when you don't have God, when you're devoutly secular, like I am, you see people that still have that same level of devotion, that same level of passion, which is a buzzword, but the passion behind that ideology or belief in a way that you can't dissuade them of it. And to try to dissuade them of it could be, in many ways, quite rude. Would you go up to your grandmother or your grandfather who wears prayer beads and has the rosary, does the rosary every day, and you say, "Hey, Grandpa, God doesn't exist"? That would be a militant atheist thing to do. I remember those days. Back when I was in my 20s, I was a little bit more making fun of people for being religious. But the older you get, I gotta be honest with you folks, the older you get, the more you're going to respect religion. Count on it. Because it does offer a greater thing to aspire to, something greater than ourselves. A higher, supreme, divine being and force that we can be inspired by to do greater things with ourselves. We are not the end-all, be-all, and we don't have to look only inward. We can look outward and upward and find our purpose, our meaning, and our own faith. But I like to make sure that people understand and remember, they know it deep down. I don't want to project or mind read, but I think people know it deep down. These are belief systems. They are not the truth. But it helps when you're persuading to take, well, an absolute position. Or as Scott Adams would say, an absurd absolute in some cases. And of course, martyrs, non-believers. If you are censored off of social media, please send me your stories in the comments section below. You would be a martyr of the modern religion of censorship, and I thank you in advance, and I hope things work out for you, because we are seeing more and more of it in 2020 than ever before. I don't like to, again, our frame on reality, as we talked about earlier in the video, is very relative, very subjective. We only have the things we see and perceive, and some of them are algorithmically manipulated. So we never truly know just how organic our impression of reality is sometimes. There's a lot of searching, a lot of information to see the greater mosaic, the greater game board, however you want to frame it. And so I say we should always be on the search for truth and never truly settling down. You can rest or go on vacation in an echo chamber, but I recommend not living in an echo chamber. You want to live in a place of open dialogue. So that's it for today's tweet video. Thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate that. If you enjoyed the video, please do like and subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, meritocracy rules, hit that downvote button. Really helps me with the algorithm. And of course, I am on Twitter, Real Jeff Tidwell. I'm also on Gab, Minds, Telegram, Instagram, and Parler. If you're not watching this video on YouTube, you're watching it on BitChute. Thank you very much, of course. And if you have any thoughts or observations, hey, leave me a comment below. With those accolades, criticisms, trolls, I take it all. I love hearing from you guys, and I love talking to you. And as I always say, everything I said today might be wrong. Or everything I said today might be right. Perhaps the truth lies between some of what I said was wrong and some of what I said was right. I think that makes the most sense.